I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless, maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe we are all self-helpless.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with Tajani Inawa, who is the artist behind the most recent theme song of the podcast, which you literally just heard before I started speaking. And Tajani is actually the third artist we've had create a theme song for us. We love to feature a new artist every few years or so, and Tajani responded to a call, a submission we had for artists a while back, and wrote this awesome piece of music for us. And we just loved it. And I thought it'd be really fun to have him on the podcast to talk about his creative process and give all kinds of cool insights and tips. So, this episode is just packed with practical tips for people who not only want to get into the music industry and people who want to make their own music, whether it's for fun or as a hobby, or you're curious about doing it professionally. He offers up so many great tips for getting started with both making music, audio engineering, all that cool stuff, but also just gives really great advice for artists in general and people who want to try something new in their life. We talked about perfectionism and getting out of your own way to allow yourself to try and be new at something, prioritizing what concepts to work on when, and just the realities of creating your art while also making money and paying your bills and being strategic about how and where and when you spend your energy. So Tajani shares the exact steps he took to make his first connections in this industry, how he creates a piece of music. Okay, this was very cool. He gave us all an impromptu music lesson, literally grabbed his guitar, started strumming, talked his way through some steps. Loved that. And a very powerful takeaway from this episode is the power of one. One step, one person, one connection, one headshot, one video is all you need to get things off the ground for yourself. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And, even if you're not interested in making music or you don't consider yourself an artist, but you get caught in that all or nothing thinking, you need to listen to this episode. It'll absolutely help you with that. So here's my conversation with Tajani. Tajani, thank you so much for being here today. So excited to chat with you. Everybody just heard me rave about you in the intro and how much you just crushed the new Self-Helpless theme song. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is sick. Yeah, I'm so glad to be
Yeah.
chatting with you.
So I would love to know just how you got started in music. Where did this begin?
All right. So age 5.
Perfect.
All of my earliest memories were with music, and my family got like a little radio for Christmas. This was like what 2003, 2002, somewhere in there, and you could still record the radio off the tape, right? I
Oh,
remember my
wow.
dad showing me like, oh, you can record the radio, and I remember just like this is such a vivid memory of hitting record, hitting stop, hitting rewind, and hitting play again. And I was like, I just rewound time. This is crazy. And like, I just like, yeah, there's this picture on my Instagram of me like playing with it. Like, so
Oh
yeah,
my
it
gosh, that's
goes,
cute.
my fascination with like recording and like microphones, this goes all the way back to then. And, yeah, my family grew up in the church, and we were just always around music. My brother played keys and piano. Parents always had music on in the house. I started playing pretty early. I was the first time I went on stage and actually did well was I was like 11 or 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like playing. I was like a worship leader and stuff like that. Grew up very Christian. I was always hanging out in the back with the audio guys and just like all these lights and buttons, like cool, sick. And then, you know, as I started playing with more churches and like bands and stuff like that, I was just always just interested in like recording and playing guitar and knowing how to get better. So around 8th grade, I got my first like microphone and like little machine that I could like record off of. All of my recordings were terrible. All my songwriting was terrible, and I was so discouraged. And I didn't have anyone to show me anything. And there was information on YouTube at that point, but it wasn't. It was so specific, and you had to be in a certain environment, and you had a certain gear and stuff like that. So it was just uh it felt like a very deep rabbit hole that I did not how to, you know, get
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
So fast forward to college, or high school, I guess. We would just start freestyle rapping at like cross country practice, and one of my friends was like, "Dude, you're actually like kind of good at this, bro."
Oh my God, I love
And that
it.
gave me like just enough validation, to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this." So, um, I was, and I at the same time I heard about Chance the Rapper, and I heard Sunday Candy, and then heard his story about how he was just like making music with homies and like recording in different environments that weren't just studios. I'm like, oh, like this is like doable. Like you don't have to have, you know,
Yeah,
20 grand to like make an album or something like that. So
right.
um I was like, all right. Summer after senior year, I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. I didn't figure it out. It's an endless rabbit hole. It's a huge, it's such a deep
The life of an artist, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, you know how it
it's
is.
never ending.
Yeah, it's such a deep chasm. But yeah, I before high school I ended, I had a like a spring award. I was a pretty good runner back in high school and college, and that same friend, we're having a spring awards or whatever. It's my last one, and like you know, my team was super supportive, and like you know, athletic directors and stuff. They all just like were like, oh, it's gonna be you know sad to see you go. Thank you for all you did, blah blah. And I'm going up to accept my award, and that teammate goes, "Speech." As a joke, I was like, "Yo, thank you so much for you know showing up to me. It's like high five in the hallways. It's always great to see you guys. Like, I'm gonna be sad, gonna miss you guys, and I just want to leave you with this mixtape dropping Thursday." And everyone's like,
Oh my
the
God.
whole auditorium goes nuts, and they thought I was joking, but I was not joking, dude. I had like soundcloud.com/Tajani on like every whiteboard in high school.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah, it was
incredible.
funny. And yeah, that was like the first time I was really like, okay, I'm recording now. Again, all those were awful recordings, and I want them as far away as my current hard drive as possible. So
Oh my God, that's how I feel about all of
yeah.
my like early stand-up clips that I cannot get back. Like they're on the
Oh,
internet forever because I don't own them. I'm like, oh my God.
out in the ether.
It's like somebody recorded my very first day at my very first job. And I'm like, oh fuck, there's
Yeah,
nothing I
yeah.
can do. But I love what you said of like sometimes it's just like that one line from a good bro is like all the confidence that you need to
Yep,
like get
yep.
started. And it reminded me of, oh my God, that guy that like won American Idol. He was like, I don't know. He like worked construction, and one of his friends was just like, "Hey, you're a pretty good singer," and then he just wins the whole fucking thing. Like,
Wild.
so yeah. Anyway,
And the
but
industry loves a story like that, you
oh,
know?
they do. Oh yes.
We all love a story like that, but yeah,
Yes, absolutely. So
good
it
for him.
sounds like you knew that you wanted to do music from a pretty young age, then, right?
Yes, but that confidence did not come around until way later.
Okay, so what happened like yeah after high school?
So yeah, after high school, I started rapping because I was like, I don't know how to write a song. I can't write lyrics, and so I was like, all right, let me just get words down. And then I was like, okay, cool. I know how to structure songs and like how to like come up with rhymes and like little tricks and tips for myself. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I want to add more melodies to this. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm adding more guitar into the recordings, and this whole time I'm running track. I'm up at 5:30, 6 a.m. going to run, you know, 10 miles every single day, going to class, and didn't major in anything music related really.
Oh, okay.
And so this was all just like me just in my dorm room just trying to figure this thing out. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, all right, okay, I'm good. Like I know I can see the progression from here to now, but I was like, I need someone to just sit down and show me like what I'm doing wrong, and so I
Mm.
can get to this next step. You know what I mean? And there's this crew called Team Supreme out in LA back in like the 2013, like 2010 to 2015 era. They really popped off, and they had these little competitions. You'd have to make a 1 minute beat using samples they provided or recordings they provided at the same BPM. And one of my beats I submitted, they made it open eventually, and one of my beats made it onto their one of their tapes. And I was like, yo, I emailed their podcast. I was like, yo, thank you so much. Like, I love Team Supreme, blah blah blah, and like just gushing. And then I was like, Tajani from Charlotte, just hoping and praying that it would be leave a calling card to someone in Charlotte that did the
Yeah.
same thing that I did, because I didn't know anyone. No one in my school really did, and I was like super solo. It was such a lonely path, and I was just looking for someone else who wanted to make beats and just learn how to
Yeah.
engineer and record. Lo and behold, one person heard it, and he hit me up on SoundCloud. His name's Danny Hurley.
Oh
At the
my
time, he was in
gosh. That's
yeah,
awesome.
At the time, he was an assistant for Kevin McCluskey, who owned Black Pearl Studios here in Charlotte, which is now Safe and Sound. I didn't know that. He was like, "Oh, let's just go get some, some tarts and coffee or whatever, and we'll just hang out." And,
Tarts. I need to start inviting people out for tarts.
dude, I'm just such a
Love a
sweet
good
tooth. I literally
tart.
have like lemon cookies, bro. I have like lemon cookies, like Oreos. Like, yeah, I hit him up. We hung out. He was super cool. He was a couple years older than me, so I was like, all right, sick. Like, there's at least one person out here who like understands this little world that I'm in or trying to,
Yeah.
get into. So we met, became friends, just loose friends, social media, whatever. Maybe popped in on him like twice. Again, I was super busy with school and girlfriend and track and traveling every other week. And in senior year, I was looking for an internship. And I was like, I have to intern at this studio. I was like, this is it. At the time, they were working on DaBaby's Suge and Kirk albums. Pretty busy time, so I got to see some of that go down, which was cool. I got to hear like stuff from Chance before it came out, stuff
How
from DaBaby before it came
cool.
out. Yeah, it was. This is my first time like really like seeing like things go down. They had like a random like free masterclass whatever. So on Instagram, they posted this. And so I DM'd them. I was like, yo, if there's a spot, please. There's only like 10 spots or something like that. I was like, yo, please, like, would love to come through. Boom, got in, had the resume ready, slid it to the owner with Danny's recommendation, got an internship. So that's how I got to really learn how to engineer, just watch and learn everything from Kevin and Danny up there.
I love that story in particular because when you mentioned, okay, I sent my name and where I live, hoping that maybe somebody would hear me. And it only takes one person, right? It only takes one person to connect you with somebody or something that really can change your trajectory. And I feel like that was such a smart move. And whether it was strategic or intuition or whatever that made you
It was a
do
Hail
that.
Mary, to be honest.
Right, exactly.
I was
It's
desperate.
like nothing to lose and hopefully a lot to gain, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for people to remember that it just takes something simple and it takes one person sometimes for you to kind of go to the next step and then the next step and then the next step, that one simple step, that one connection, because something like, getting into music or having a thriving music career can feel, I'd imagine, so overwhelming, so daunting. And that's such a great reminder. So I just wanted to kind of pinpoint that. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, I used to. So basically, I guess from there, had the internship and eventually got keys to the studio. And what I would do, I mean, I would not recommend this to anyone. You could get fired or sued or whatever, blacklisted. I don't know, but I would like take projects that were on the computer and just copy them to my computer. Take everything off, take all the plugins and all the tools off, and reset it to 0, and then just like look at the project side by side and just like change one parameter at a time just to see what I was hearing and see, try to see the thought process and reverse engineer it. So that's how I learned to engineer, basically.
What did you study in college and stuff? You said you were not studying music or anything like that. What were you doing?
I was taking the easiest route possible, and actually, not really. I'll give myself enough credit. I started out in like sports management, so I wanted to be a track. I wanted to be a track coach.
Very cool. Okay.
The typical track is, run in high school, or actually, you don't even have to run, actually, but just have knowledge in the sport. But my track was going to be run in high school, run in college, hopefully go pro for sign a contract or run with the club for a little bit, and then volunteer assist, and then become an assistant, and then a head coach, and then an athletic director. Then that's the typical career path of a coach.
Okay.
So that's the track that I was on, and I was in sports management. And I think at that time, by the time I was 19, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do music. I think I just didn't have the confidence to take that step and be like, I'm going to abandon this thing that I'm really good at for something that's so far away and not as tangible right now. So, having the knowledge I would have had now, I probably wouldn't even have ran track. It was like, I mostly ran track to just get into college because my mom, she ran track and got in on a scholarship, and so did I. And I was like, well, this seems to be the only path that, works. And, my parents were always very encouraging, but like music was like, it was just such a foreign thing. And it's, I can imagine telling a child, "Hey, put all your eggs in this one basket that doesn't have a clear path." I'm sure
Right.
you would feel so horrible if you were just like, "I sent them on this path. I should have said this." You know what I mean? And so, yeah, certain conversations hurt, but we got over it.
That's such a young age to kind of realize that you want to pivot or that you want to pursue the thing that you
Yeah.
love instead of the thing that you think you should do. So, what happened after that? What were conversations like with people around you?
Yeah, I realized I didn't want it. It wasn't that hard of a decision to pivot from track. Didn't have a great time in college with my college coaches. My high school coach was great. The coach I had the last 2 years were solid. Still chat, to this day, which is nice. I could not imagine being a coach. Like, you're telling 18-year-old kids to sign this contract that they're tied to for 2 years, and like they might be
Right.
having the most horrible time. And like in my situation, I wanted to transfer to a different school. I didn't know there was an art school that also had a track program.
Mm.
But because they were like in the same like division, like I wasn't allowed to transfer. So my scholarship would transfer, and so I'd have to sit out for a year, pay for a whole year of school, not be on a team, and then hope I can get a scholarship at that point. And so like
Oh, wow.
it's insane how much coaches have control over what you do.
At such a young age to like have a contract and stuff. Like your frontal lobe isn't
Yeah.
even fully developed yet until like
Yes.
27. And then here you are signing, a couple years
Yeah.
to something that you're not really sure how it's going to go. So let's kind of move forward to like where you are at now. What is like
Yeah.
the snapshot of how you work in the music industry? Is it your full-time job? Do you have other gigs that you do? Like what's your situation now?
So it's basically three things.
Okay.
So I have my band, and then and we do shows and stuff like that. We're chilling on shows right now, finishing the next album, and then
Cool.
hopefully set some stuff for next year. But yeah, so shows like getting on festivals and opening for different bands and such, and then
Awesome.
merch and all that, all everything. That's a whole business of itself.
Yeah.
And then I'm an audio engineer, so live sound and then studio stuff slash so that includes production, songwriting, mixing,
Amazing.
whatever. Live sound is the main gig right now, just because it's less emotional. I find it.
Really?
Yeah, studio
Okay.
sessions. Every studio is gonna have a nice sounding room, nice gear, right? But
Yeah.
it's all about the vibe of the room. When you're, it's. I mean, I'm sure you've been in writers' rooms where it's like, oh, this just doesn't feel.
Right.
You know,
A lot
you
of
know what I'm
different
saying?
personalities.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like even if they're good people and it's whatever, you're chumming it up, it can still just feel like, oh, this is not the right vibe, and it's hard to tap into your emotions. Artists are very sensitive. I mean, everyone's very sensitive, but
Yeah.
artists especially. And I naturally am not very catering towards other people's emotions. I've really had to work on that, and yeah, it's more emotionally draining for me to make those creative decisions and emotional decisions. Live shows, it's just like, all right, here's the input list, here's the routing, um, make sure there's no feedback, make sure everything can be heard. Crowd is having a good time, band can hear themselves. All right, cool, we're good. Show runs for 2 hours is a definite end. Studio time, there's definite ends to stuff, but like a lot of times it's so explorative and has no, it's very open ended, and that like stresses me out a lot.
Oh, that
So
makes so much sense. That's really interesting.
yeah, so to combat that, I was like, I'm gonna earn my most of my money from things that are not emotional like that, so I can save the creative energy for my own projects, or and accepting projects that I only want to work on.
Oh, I
That
love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that is so
So
smart.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that I'm able to do that right now. I was at this point last year, I was getting closer, but definitely not as much as I was doing it now. So yeah.
I love that you mentioned that because I think that's such a big part of being a creative is learning how to like manage your own energy and
Mhm.
figuring out where it goes and that evolves over time and that shifts. Like I'm at a point in my career where I kind of want to get more of a conventional job and I've been running my own company for like 6 years or something, but
Mhm.
I feel like it's now zapping my energy in a way that is making me feel less creative. And
Yeah.
I kind of like, well, I kind of just want to get a job. And then it frees me up to create all these other things that I
Mhm.
don't feel like creating right now. And, in the beginning of starting my business, or even a few years ago, I didn't feel that way at all. It felt like the most creative thing ever. And so I think it's really smart to always check in with your energy when you're a creative like this.
I actually
Yeah.
learned that from bartending, actually, just about pivoting and like, all right, what I don't want to deal with and what I do want to deal with.
Oh, do tell.
I was just like, I just moved back to Charlotte, kicked out of my parents' house. Yeah, I just moved back, and I was like, well, I don't want to be working in like a warehouse where it's like I'm super physical all the time. So I was like, all right, and I don't like working in the mornings. So yeah, I would just start with what I don't like. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing a physical job. I am not gonna get up in the morning. I'm not gonna be serving food. I'm not gonna be in a loud environment. So I just
Yeah.
like kept ruling out stuff, and I'm just like, just don't settle for anything than what you want to manage. And I landed a super sick spot. Shout out Petty Thieves, they're sick. They sponsored a little festival we had here in Charlotte, which is cool.
Nice.
um and yeah, I started out just don't want to be working in a kitchen or working with food or dishes or anything like that. I just want to be serving drinks. I'm like, all right, cool. I had a spot at a venue, at a brewery, and a different venue, and I was like, all right, this venue is like open too late. I don't want to be up that late. And then I don't get enough shifts here, so like, all right, let me just add a different venue, something like that. So I'm just sort of always just trying to balance how much energy is being taken away, and that way I'm able to do other things during that time. And then I was just like, all right, working too much behind the bar. Like I have a weird thing where I try to like master things. Like I'll get into something and I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna be like the best, absolute best at this thing. And
Yeah.
I was like looking up like bartending recipes and like world's best bartenders. I'm like bartending. I'm like, why am I? What am I doing? And so yeah, I get sidetracked real easily and super deep into stuff. And it's a blessing and a curse. But
Mhm.
yeah. So I was like, I'm working too many shifts. All right, let me see if I can just like supplement that with just like music stuff and like keep planning ahead to where I can like, all right, I can take less shifts. I can take less shifts. And finally, back in March,
Yes.
and since then I've been like freelance and doing it full time and taking care of myself and
That's
paying for therapy and all that
awesome.
stuff. So
So
yeah,
awesome.
I should
That's
look up the actual day and celebrate that. Gotta
You
celebrate your
should.
W's, man.
Yes. Oh my
Gosh
gosh. All those wins along the way, the little ones, the big ones, the medium ones, they're so important because I don't know if you're like this, but I know for me is like I'll accomplish a goal and then I'll just be, all right, what's next? And I've had to train myself to like be more present and celebrate the things in
yeah,
the moment, or else it's like, what are we doing here? Are we enjoying any of this?
yeah.
Do you struggle
One
with
of my so,
perfectionism?
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah, it's bad, it's bad. That's something. And for me, I think it comes out differently in different people, but for me, I will get uh just super in my head about like small details that no one really thinks about. Like, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
zoom out, dude. Like, just zoom out and you'll be fine. And
Yeah.
and
Same.
it shows up in procrastination too. That's why I procrastinate a lot because I'm like, oh, like I don't know if I'm able to do this thing how I want it, and so I'll be like, oh, well, I'll wait till I'm better at mixing, or like I'll wait till I've been practicing guitar more, or I'll wait till I've warmed up my voice and it feels better. I've been smoking too much or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like I'll come up with like, okay, yeah, these are good reasons to like wait, but like really, it's just fear is what it is.
Right.
All those are just fear-based choices, and you just have to just fight it every day. You got to wake up and just fight it every day. So I think it
Yeah.
gets easier, but I hope one day it's not this hard.
Oh my gosh,
It's
seriously.
tough, man. It's
Well,
tough.
what kind of things do you do or tell yourself that helps you kind of snap out of the procrastination mode? Maybe it's helpful if you have like deadlines that you have to get things in, but if you
Yeah.
don't and it's kind of on you, what do you do for yourself if you don't mind walking us through some of those things?
I think it's just a form of self-love. I think you have to
Mhm.
allow yourself to, just make mistakes and just like do stuff and, ask the dumb question. Like
Yeah.
I get very in my head about, making small mistakes. And like one thing I noticed with working with, more experienced engineers is like they don't shit on themselves when sorry, can we curse on this?
Oh yeah, I
Okay,
think I've
cool.
said fuck 4 times already.
Yeah, I learned that confident people, they don't, immediately just trash themselves when they make a mistake. They're just like, oh, this isn't working. All right, let me think through the problem. I think this is going to do it. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, let me try this. All right, cool. That worked. All right. Then they move on. Right.
Mm,
Instead of moving on, I would get stuck in that where I'm just like, oh, like I'm making everyone's day worse. I'm slowing everything down. I'm sandbagging the team. Like everyone hates me. And it's just like a whole spiral. Like it's bad. Like
right.
it's so bad. So, yeah, it's just a form of self-love. It's like, hey, man, everyone makes mistakes. You're not ruining the show.
Yeah.
Slow down. Just think the problem through. All right, cool. And then you solve the problem. All right, sick. We're on to the next thing. And even I'm still pretty young in the live sound world, so things go pretty slow. So it sucks to have that pressure of just like getting everything up as quick as possible.
Yeah.
But you have to just slow down. I just have to be nice to myself, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm obsessive, so I'll go home. Anything I didn't know, I'll just be like, all right, I'm gonna stay up until 3 a.m. reading a manual about this microphone and this console and this piece of gear and what a GFI is and like circuit breakers and like just you know
Right.
and doing that, I learned that there's levels to it. I don't have to know everything to be. That's where my perfectionism shows up too.
Mhm.
As like, I feel like I have to know absolutely every little detail and every little corner and like back door of how this is going to work before I get into something. And like, that's delayed, becoming an artist for so long and just being in music for so long. Like no one comes into a job knowing everything, and most people
That's
still
right.
don't know everything. Even the really experienced people, they
Exactly.
still have gray areas. And so yeah, you just have to allow yourself to have that little grace.
So relatable to anybody tuning in right now, including myself. Like that is just the worst trap when you really put that
Yeah,
pressure on yourself, saying that
yeah,
you have to thinking that you have to know everything about everything to be worthy of whether it's pursuing something or charging a certain amount for your
yeah,
service or this or that or recording an album, whatever it is. It's impossible to know everything about everything. Not even experts who've been
yeah.
doing it for decades know every little detail. And I love what you said about this connection between confidence and self love is like, I'm
Right.
going to really think about that now. Where if I feel like I'm stuck on something, a minute detail that nobody's going to notice but me, like just asking yourself a question of like, how could I love myself right now in this moment?
Hmm.
Or what would somebody who really loves themselves do? Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't even
Take
believe
yourself out
it,
of it.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, if I really had a lot of self love, what action would I actually take right now? That is such a good, just hot tip of in the moment asking yourself that question or
Yeah.
just shifting to that. That's such a great one.
It's tough to stay that present, but
Oh gosh, it really
yeah.
is. That's why I'm like, how could I think of one thing? Like when I feel like crap, what's one little nugget that will pop up in my head? And I feel like that
Mhm.
one will pop up for me. So you are, I mean, you make your own music, but you're also an engineer. Like you have a very well-rounded talent and skill set. Would you say that is pretty common in the music industry that people do both things? How has that been for you? What's that
Uh,
experience like?
Thank you, by the way,
Yeah.
for recognizing that. So typically, I find with it's, I mean, you just stand up for a while, so
Yeah.
you come to find out, oh, this person's really good at improv. This person's really good at writing. This person's good at
Yeah.
writing dramas or TVs. This person's good at like writing kids stuff. This person's really good at stand up, but also can do I don't know, magic shows. I don't know. There's
Right.
just,
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
typically when you have one skill, it branches off, and that's pretty common among engineers as well. So
Okay.
if, most engineers start out as musicians. Engineering is kind of like a very, you have to be able to understand a pretty large concept. And
Yeah.
so most kids when they're starting out, they're just like, oh, guitar. They know, I can plug this in to this and it's going to make this sound. It's like, okay, cool. But being an engineer for a live show or a venue, it's like that times 1,000, or
Wow.
like
Yeah.
and so most engineers start out playing drums or playing guitars and being in bands, and they're like, oh well, I can't afford to go to a studio for $2,000 or $400 a day, whatever. So I'm gonna get like I'm gonna get 4 microphones and just learn how to just like at least record a demo or something like
Mhm.
that. And so that's how a lot of engineers start, is where they're just like curious in this thing. Some people don't have that itch to learn how these tools work. Um, and so, yeah, some people are just like, I am just going to play guitar. I'm going to be really good at guitar. I'm going to be a session player and I'm going to be a live player. Like, I can just pull up with a guitar and just do whatever. Like, and those people
Right.
are amazing. Like I envy those people. I was really good at guitar, but and I could play by ear really well, but the I always struggled with the basics. I was very like technical and like I could hear things out, but to be on that level is crazy. And then
Yeah.
yeah, so it's pretty common. There's a lot of value in that. There's I what I saw, I was like, okay, there's 1,000 guys with a guitar, but maybe four of them only know how to record and mix and edit, right? So I was like, all right, there's
Right.
value there. Let me see if I can just like capitalize on that. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm able to, edit a podcast or, edit audio or work on music and songwriting and production and do live stuff. So, and it allows me to just like not be so stuck. Cause if I was stuck
Mm.
with one thing, that's another thing I noticed. I was like, if I was stuck with just studio stuff, I would constantly be in one dark room with, you know, no windows and like I'm gonna be in there for 7, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever. I don't know what time of day it is, and that's
Right.
just a depressing existence. So I was like, I need to be able to do different things.
Right.
So I need to like diversify. I think that's also the good thing about the perfectionism is like I do want to kind of know everything, and so
Right.
I picked up drums and guitar and bass and
My gosh.
just studying songwriting and stuff like that, and just like really listening to um, just everyone, just trying to again, I don't want to be stuck in a box either. So even with engineers, you can still get stuck in a box where just R&B and rap or just
Mm.
pop music or just rock music. Like I want to be able to like step into any room and be able to contribute, whether that's, you know, lyrics, melodies, guitar lines, bass lines, drums, direction, just like
Wow. Yeah.
so, and I don't want to have I don't like feeling not confident. So I'm just like, all right, at least I have a baseline knowledge of like where I think I can help and be of value. So, and if you're valuable, then you're making money. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Okay, so this is interesting. I have a question for you because with the way that you kind of weeded things out based on the job that you wanted to have, like bartending, right? Like I'm not a morning person. I don't want to do this. I'm going to do bartending. I would imagine you get so many different ideas for songs or things that you want to learn or whatever. How do you weed things out and narrow it down to like, okay, I'm working on this piece of music for myself right now, and all of these other ideas like have to wait? Is that an issue for you, and how do you manage that?
Oh yeah, I have a ton of
Okay.
different. Oh, there's so many cool jobs and just things you can do.
Yeah.
Like I'm really interested in like animation. Like I think animation's sick. In college, I took like 2 animation courses and had a lot of fun with that. That was probably the most fun I had, like in school, just like making little logo pops and like
Yeah.
cool, weird, quirky little intros and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, animation's a big thing. Working in animation would be so cool. Like eventually I'd like to get to a point where if I could like work on like work for like a studio that works with like Nickelodeon for like voice actors or something like that. That'd be so
Just
fun.
gonna say, I was like, you could probably create your own animation and voice it and do the music for it. Like you're just a one-stop shop for the entire production, like
All
a
right. Oh,
one-man production company.
I think that's where the limitation is the time really. I
Yeah.
got to think about, basically I think you start with the end goal. Now yeah, I started with what I don't want to do, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not doing any of those things. All right, now what do I want to do? What do I want to look forward to?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, this is a goal. Um, right now it's just like get on tour, and just like build a bigger fan base. I mean, and
Mhm.
you got to reverse engineer. All right, how do I do that? You got to be
Yeah.
online more. You got to write the music. You got to put out stuff. You got to you know talk to more people, put yourself out there more. And then that's basically how I determine what projects I work on. A lot of times this is just me just trying to understand microphones more. I'm a real nerd. A lot of artists are like, I mean, a lot of artists are nerds too, but some people are just like cool. I am not cool. I literally just like read manuals on microphones and like compressors. And like
I love it.
I think some artists are like, yeah, I love being on stage and I love like being in the mix or whatever. Me, my favorite part is just sitting in the studio, just like making stuff, putting stuff together. Like that's my
Yeah.
favorite part. Um, And a lot of it is just me trying to learn, different genres, different styles, different techniques, and approaches to things. So it's a never ending rabbit hole that
Yeah.
I can't seem to get out of. So
Honestly, it is so
but yeah.
therapeutic for me to do this podcast. I have felt like this pressure to put myself in one box and stay there and just okay, pick that one thing, do it for the rest of your life, be the best that you can at it, and that's it. But just my brain does not work that way. I have so many different interests, and there's so many
Yeah.
things that I want to explore, and that is just like a constant. I have to constantly manage that.
Yeah.
And so knowing that like you're crushing it in music, but you also have this, interest in animation or like other things going on
Yeah.
really makes me feel a lot better because I'm like, when will this stop? But I'm like, I don't think it will. I think this is just who I am. And I have to just accept that about myself. And at any given point in my life, I have had 10 paths that I've been interested in, and I've had to just kind of narrow it down as I go, and
Yeah.
it changes and it evolves. So thank you for sharing that. That is incredibly helpful. And I know a lot of people tuning in kind of struggle with that themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be just like, wow, you're going to have a lot of versatile skills. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
freaking cool. Okay, so I am so fascinated about the songwriting process. I'm a writer, but I've never like written songs for real. I'll write them in my phone for fun, but I don't know if they're actually like if they work or anything. So what is that like? Where do you start? If you can just share anything about that process.
So yeah, my process, I usually just start with guitar. So I sort of compartmentalize it into like, I guess, three different parts. There's the music part of it, chords, melodies, structure, and that's basically like all of music. And then there's like lyrics and then there's like the recording and production part of it. The music part comes the most natural just because it's like I'll just be noodling around. There's voice notes, you can use that. Or I'll hear something like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me see if I can just like take a little bit of inspiration from this, or like, oh, this movie score sounded cool. I like these drums in here. But I wonder if I could do a pattern. So I'll start with chords, and then I'll start with like melodies. I mean, I can grab my guitar and show you right now if I wanted to, but
Oh, that'd be so cool. Wow, this is a real first on the podcast.
yeah, I
I
literally
love it.
just bought this. Start with some chords in a tempo. Um, and then from there, I keep a lot of notes in my phone. I'll start with a lyric. I try to start with something that's very personal, relatable, and like cuts through immediately. This song's gonna be out soon. It's called Hometown, and I was
Cool.
having a conversation with my sister, and I was just like, yeah, man, like I was talking to some people from my past, from high school, college, whatever, and I was like, yeah, I'm surprised that people still miss me. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good line.
I
So
love
I
that.
started.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised when people still miss me. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Why? I ask why. Why am I surprised? When do I feel this way? Do I feel this way around a person, around a certain event? I trick myself into thinking of more ideas. I think
Wow.
a lot of people think songwriting is like, oh, I want to say this, and then you
Yeah.
just you say all those things. But it's for me, it's like I'm asking questions and exploring this feeling of why I'm feeling this or how I'm feeling this. And then so yeah, I'll write like a section of it, and then like I want to change like a chord, so I'll just try some chords. My music theory isn't super like solid, but like, at the end of the day, you're just using your ears and what feels good.
Yeah.
And then typically, your muscle memory just kick in of like you just writing songs and rhyming and stuff like that, and like really, with lyrics are the hardest thing because it can come off very corny very quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I'd imagine.
I think growing up Christian like really like hit home. My parents were always just so strict about what we were listening to and the lyrics, and they were like, "Oh, well, what are they saying? What do they mean by this? Blah blah blah." And so like I try not to have any type of filler in my lyrics. It forces me to just like be honest with myself, I guess. Um, I feel like I write a lot about my failures and like those things really shape me. I tend to focus on negative things and positive things.
Mm.
Trying to shift that, but it's funny because I feel like I don't come off that way, but I'm always just like in my head about like, oh, in fourth grade, like this thing happened. Why did I do this? I'm like, I was just 8
I
or
mean, it
9.
makes good music. It really does.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, and then there's a bunch of little tricks in there. But so yeah, then the production of it. I think the production of it is the coolest part. You can go super maximalist with like a bunch of different layers and drums and stuff like that and um instruments, and then or you can strip it back, keep it like super raw and just like right there. I think I tend to have my stuff a little more raw. I'd like to have it more robust. It gets a little hairy though sometimes though when there's too much going on. So yeah, with production, coming up with ideas for me a lot of times is just like, all right, I'm gonna reach for my guitar. I'm like, no, don't reach for your guitar. Reach for a ukulele. Do the same chords but on a ukulele. All right,
Mm,
cool. This gives a
nice.
different vibe, right? All right, let me try to different strum pattern, same tempo but different strum pattern. Let me start in the upbeat. Just again, just trying to trick yourself into like coming up with ideas. It's just like instead of going for the first thing that you think of,
Yeah.
stop yourself and like, oh, what if we just try this? Everything gives a different vibe and feeling. So electric guitar is not going to feel the same as a nylon. It's not going to feel the same as a steel string. It's not going to feel the same as single coil or humbucker. It's all just like kind of swapping out stuff. Another big thing with lyrics is or melodies. Melodies is the easiest and the hardest part. I studied Charlie XCX. Her album Next Level Charlie, I think it's called.
Okay.
All of her hooks, what I would do, I would just like take the song, drop it into Ableton, which is like recording software,
Okay.
and I would chop it up, and I would write out lyrics, and I would write out like highlight. All right, these melodies are following these melodies. Oh, it just switches. The melody just switches on the fourth one. Okay, the next section it does the same thing, but the second one's changed and it returns back to the okay. And so if you can, I come up with melodies pretty naturally now, and
Yeah.
so I can just sort of be like, boom, this is it, and then I can deviate from it and come back to it. Then use different pieces in different sections, and then all right, I'm gonna just change just one note, and then like that one note change like makes it feel like, oh, this is a whole new thing. It's all about like kind of getting people to recognize the loop and the pattern, breaking that loop, and it sort of keeps your interest, and then returning back to it. Yeah, a lot of pop songs do that really well. Katy Perry, Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
Charlie XCX, Charlie XCX, like that really changed my songwriting a lot. And then there's a younger kid named Breakins, from Ohio, and he's incredible. He's one of those dudes that has such sticky melodies that just stick in your brain, but it
Yeah.
feels so random. So listening to him, I was like, oh, I can like be a lot more loose with this structure. I'm sure it's a lot like stand up where you're like, oh, I'm thinking of a punchline. And you're like, oh, this is the punchline that everyone's gonna think of. Let me say this one thing and misdirect them to this thing. And it's
Eggs.
gonna hit way harder, right?
1,000%. I've
Yeah,
always said,
yeah.
like, gosh, there's so much parallel between stand-up comedians and musicians, like,
Mhm.
just like that kind of
Yeah,
live performance. Not only the lifestyle, but just the way that you're crafting jokes in a set and crafting music.
yeah, yeah,
It's so funny that you mentioned that, yeah, you start with some of the chords and stuff because I just assumed that you start with lyrics. It's just so funny because I don't know
yeah.
anything about songwriting. I just figured, oh, you write it out and then you put music to it, but you start differently. And then when you said that, you were in conversation and then, maybe lines will come out of you that you're like, oh, that'll be a good song. That's exactly how, at least any way that I approach stand up. I would
Mhm.
say something in conversation and then like, oh, that is a premise, for
Yeah,
a bit. And then you work it out from there and it builds
yeah,
on itself. But I think that's really just a cool
yeah.
thing that you just be pulling inspiration from your real life and real conversations.
Yeah, I think people just recognize authenticity,
Yeah.
and whatever you're
Yeah.
doing, people are going to recognize it. So if you're talking about something that you're not, or singing about something that you're not passionate about, or like you haven't taken the time to actually explore that experience and what that actually feels like, people are going
Mhm.
to know it right away. And if they
Right.
don't, even if they don't, and you have the skill to like mask it, you're not gonna feel good up there, and then they're gonna recognize that you don't feel good up there, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like doing I learned that from just like doing a whole bunch of open mic performances just and doing shows and stuff, like that immediately shows. The nice thing is that, if you're not as skilled at songwriting, lyrics and such, music can just kind of mask that.
Mhm.
Which is why there's a lot of bad music sometimes. But
What's your biggest goal, your most ideal situation with your career?
oh, tour for like 2 months out of the year, and then mix records from home in the foothills of the Philippines with my hot wife and dog.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's
And you're doing a version of that now, basically. Okay, let's talk about the times where your dreams do not feel like they're possible. They feel out of reach at, the level that like is the dream level for you.
it's a process. Look at where you were last year. I had a good conversation with my buddy Paul Platt. He's a stand up here, and we hadn't chatted in a while, and he had like gone to Ireland and done some shows, and like been traveling a little bit, and we were chatting. I was just like, yeah, like was able to write for Self-Helpless. Delanie
Yeah.
asked me to be on the cast. Did a show in New York, recorded a band in Boone. I was like, okay, cool. Like we're doing exactly
You're
what we
doing
want to
some
do. Like, what are you so
yeah.
worried about, man? Like, chill out. Like, this is the reason why you do it is just to have those experiences and like be in them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you just got to remind yourself not to look so far forward and realize, as long as you're taking steps every single day towards those goals, you're gonna get there eventually. I think your goals change as you get older.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what the end goal looks like. I know I really love microphones. So
And
like
that's all you need to
that's
know,
what
to
I
Johnny.
have. Exactly. Like that's the nice thing. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm always gonna be able to learn more about recording, and like my fascination with it. I've tried to quit. I've tried to quit like making music and recording, like doing other stuff. I was
Oh,
miserable,
wow.
and I was like, hey, I just can't. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm not gonna quit. So I'm
Right.
just gonna have to just figure this thing out. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I know like that passion's not gonna go away, and that interest is never go away. So, and I can use that skill to do other things like work in stand up or work in shows or go on tour or whatever as an engineer or an artist. So it's that basic fact. The basics are
Right.
very important. I feel like you probably know this more. The more you get into these bigger rooms and like there's more. It feels like it's higher stake or whatever. It's not as crazy as you think. It's just the same thing. They're just
Mhm.
people. We're just doing a job. And again, you're
Yes.
just searching for that authenticity to get people. I had to really work through that with like track stuff. I was so obsessive and like so like I had such a tight grip on it that like if anything like deviated from what the goal was, I would be so upset and just be like trashing myself and just like punishing myself, like, oh, I'm not gonna go do this fun thing. I'm gonna get more sleep. I'm gonna, work out more. I'm gonna, just unhealthy things. Like no one runs. I realize no one runs fast if they're not happy. You know what I mean? And it's the
Mhm.
same thing in any line of work. If you're not happy doing the work, you're not gonna do a good job. So I don't know, just keep it fun.
You said something I wanna dissect for a second
Go ahead.
because it's so true, is that if you're doing the thing that you enjoy doing in whatever capacity, you're already there.
Yeah.
Anything else that comes now is just the cherry on top because you're doing it.
Mhm.
So all these other opportunities that come your way, you're still going to just be doing the thing that you enjoy. It might look different at different times, but that's it. My friends who do stand up professionally is like they get the same joy that they got at in a tiny little small room that they get
Yep.
in a huge sold out theater. It's like
Yeah.
you're just doing this, you're doing the same thing. It might look a little different, but that joy and that excitement is the same. So
Mm.
anybody tuning in that feels like they're so far away from their end goal or their big dreams, well, the end goal is to be enjoying doing the thing.
Yeah.
So you could just enjoy doing the thing right now, even
Exactly.
maybe it's not like your full-time job, or maybe it's not this, but do it now, right? In
Exactly.
any
Yeah.
capacity.
A couple months ago, I was kind of having that panicking feeling of like, oh, maybe I'm not doing enough and like blah blah blah. And I was like, wait a minute. All I've wanted to do since I was a kid was just like be in a band,
Yeah.
record music, and just hang out with music homies, and that's like all I do. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're like just doing it. So
You've already
just be
arrived.
happy in doing it.
Yeah, it can be so hard for us to realize when we've done the things that we've
Yeah.
wanted. I always have to remind myself of that too, because again, I'm always like looking for the next thing and the next goal, and it's like, look, I've just wanted to work from home, work for myself, do creative things and get paid for it. And like, oh yeah, I did that. Why do I feel like I haven't done that yet? It's so weird. So yeah, anybody tuning in too, like take a moment to realize the things that you're already doing, like you're already in that space.
Yeah.
And be really kind to yourself about it, because you never actually arrive at the destination. Your destination changes. You're never like,
Yeah.
okay, and now I'm done. Take a bow. I did
Yeah.
literally everything I ever wanted to do exactly the way that I wanted to do it. It doesn't work that way. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you wish you would have known earlier on, whether it's when you started music, or is there anything that could have saved you a lot of time and energy and frustration? Maybe there's some people who are considering getting into music that you might be able to help them out with some things to avoid.
It's a lot easier to get into a room than you think it is.
Oh, I love that.
Again, work environment is everything. Vibe is everything. That sounds very like broy, but like it really is.
Gotta be
If
good vibes.
say you don't know anything, why do you think like rappers they have a dude in their crew who doesn't rap, doesn't DJ, doesn't do anything? He's just there for vibes, right? Be a good vibe, be a good hang.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn, again, just ask the dumb question. The way I got my first the way I first started working at the Muse, where I first started doing live sound, at least on a different level. I was like doing stuff for like churches, which is like different, but I literally just walked in there after the pandemic when it was like, hey, I've worked in these studios, and if you ever need someone to run sound, just let me know. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not true. It's not that I didn't know anything. I knew enough to be
The
like,
basics.
yeah, I know microphones, I know what gain is, I know what level is.
Right.
I know how to EQ and compress. And so he was like, yeah, man, whatever. Like, come up on Monday. I'm pulled up on Monday,
Wow.
started doing that. And then I was like, all right, cool. I feel like I have a better hold on this. Let me like get more responsibility. Let me go to a bigger venue. Did the same exact thing. I was like, hey, I engineer at this venue and I've engineered for these studios. Are there opening positions for like assistants or, stagehand work? I don't know. Anything where I can just like be behind the boards and just watch and learn, and then
Yeah.
again, just learn enough to where I was like, all right, cool. I feel good with the basics now. Let me get, and then I kind of threw myself to the wolves, but I think we landed okay. So that there's another thing. Yeah, just throw yourself in there sometimes. Again, if you're
Right.
if you're just a nice person and be cool, you're gonna come across some absolute d bags. But for the
Yeah.
most part, people are nice and they want to help. And if you show that authenticity of like, yeah, I'm just interested in this thing and not like,
Right.
oh, I'm obsessed with like being in the room with these cool people, whatever. Like, really just be about the craft. People
Yes.
will pick up on that really easily. And so, especially if you're in a smaller city, you'd be surprised at how many super nice studios have like no one in them, and like
Wow.
you can just like ask and be like, hey, I'll sweep some floors or something like that. Or another kid was asking me, he's like, hey man, I want to get into studio stuff. And I was like, again, it was like starting with what you don't want. Look at the credits, look at who's pretty regularly in there. I go with that, and then it's just like be a good hang. Go in with an exact idea of what you want to do and say, this is what I want to do. And if they're
Mhm.
not able to offer you that, don't take that as rejection. It's just like they know they're not going to be able to help you on that path. So it's going to lead you to
Right.
something else that's going to be good.
Right.
So
I love the fact that you have just asked. Sometimes
yeah,
it's just
dude.
asking and expressing interest. Like I'm just here to learn,
Yeah.
and people do really respond well, for the
Yeah.
most part to that.
Having a trust in people, I think there's a level of trust. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just like the hippie dippy, I don't know. But like I went to New York for the first time a couple months ago, for a show, and like we got lost in that city. The first thing I noticed was like it's so big that you feel like you don't feel like you're being perceived at all, right? And so
Mhm.
you kind of feel alone, but you're with people, right? It's such
Right.
a weird feeling, but like
Yes.
you don't know anyone, but if you ask someone for help, most of the time, if they can, they're going to help. And you just have to kind of like just fall back and like let I hate saying the universe, but like you got to just kind of fall back and just like trust, like, all right, cool. Let me just ask this question and like,
Yes.
someone can help me out. They'll help me out. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Exactly. I mean, like, yeah, people can't help you or connect with you if they don't know you exist, right? Like,
exactly.
just sometimes showing up, like, hey, I exist, and this is what I'd like to learn and how I could add value to whatever you're up to. Like you said, I'll sweep some floors if I could get some, I don't know,
Yeah.
studio time or whatever. I mean, it's just an exchange, right? It's like you don't
Mhm.
have to be. You don't have to be salesy. You don't have to pretend that you're something you're not, whatever. All
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
get so in their head of like, I have to pitch myself to get things. Or you could just be a person and be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you have just continued to put yourself out there that
Yeah.
way. And like you said, like if the perfectionism or whatever, you get stuck in that, there's so many things that wouldn't have happened for you if you got
Mhm.
stuck on a detail and then just never submitted the thing or never put
Yeah.
yourself out there. Okay, so
Yeah.
it is a dream bucket list of mine to write and produce a song of some kind at some point, just for myself.
Oh,
Yes,
nice.
for myself. I was in middle school band. I played some drums and piano. That's about it. I was on drumline for a little bit in high school, but
All
I
you
have
need to know is
no.
all you know.
Okay,
I think
I
Chappelle
love
said
that.
that. What did he say? He was like, "All you need to know is what you know." I'm like, "All right,
Oh
there
my
you go."
gosh. It's always been a bucket list dream of mine just to do it and learn and look at the process. I think it'd be so cool to like watch somebody mix some sounds or be in a studio
Mhm.
or so
I
what
need to send you the original video to the Self-Helpless podcast. I wrote that song. I was driving home from a show and I was like, man, I want some sweets or something. And so I went to a McDonald's and only the drive-thru was open. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'm literally in the drive-thru. I'm like, the melody came to me in my head. I was like, I have to write this right now, and I just happen to have my guitar in there, and so I recorded it.
oh
I
my
need to send it to you.
I love that. Oh, that is so
but
incredible. Yeah, like inspiration
but yeah,
just strikes and boom. I used to have to carry my phone everywhere and like a notepad by my bed or whatever because you just never know when you're going to come up with a bit
mhm,
or whatever. For me, it's always been easier to write jokes and do things for other people. Like if a comedian's like, hey, can you look at some bits of mine or whatever? I'm like, oh, here's punchlines or tags that came to me for this. It was always so much harder writing my own stuff. Do you find that with music? Like if somebody comes to you like, here's a song, is there any ideas or concepts or whatever that you feel like, oh, boom, 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 you know exactly what to do? But with your own music, do you struggle?
it really depends.
Yeah,
I try to just ask questions. What are you trying to say? Like,
right.
what is this feeling? Like, explore this more, or like, and that can like give a. They're like, oh, well, I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to feel more powerful when I say this thing. It's like, all right, cool. Well, then take out the top lines and then just like leave the bass and drums. Like that's
Yeah,
that's gonna make it feel more sturdy and like or take out the drums completely, like your vocals just like shine or something like that. And for my own stuff, I've just have to learn to be more decisive. I have this. It's my worst habit. I'll write like the album I'm working on. I haven't touched it in a calendar year, and like
mm.
most of the times I'll write half a song, like have the production and like have like the lyrics, and then just like a second verse or bridge. I'm just like, ah, and so I'll just like not think about it for a while, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in a completely different headspace now, and it's kind of hard to match the same
Oh.
energy. So, just being more decisive with stuff, with my own stuff is something I'm trying to learn how to do, which is getting easier.
If somebody is tuning in right now and they really would like to start, whether it's they want to maybe make a piece of music for themselves for fun, or maybe they want to get into this professionally, let's start with the person who wants to create a song. What would be like some simple steps for them to do that?
Recording in itself is an art form, and it
Yeah.
is something you have to get used to. You're gonna have to listen to your voice. So start
Yeah.
recording voice notes,
Mm,
humming little things here and there, blah blah blah,
yeah.
little melodies if you have a melody. Okay, cool, and just get used to hearing your voice more. I
Ah.
see a lot of younger people get discouraged when they're like, "Oh, my voice sounds like this is how it sounds," and they're not used to that. And
Yeah.
then studios are kind of intimidating. It's like, oh my god, there's so much expensive gear and stuff, and it's like a plaques on the wall and stuff. And it's like, oh, it can be nerve wracking.
Right.
Practice like not judging yourself so much. I really struggled with just getting started with stuff because I'd be like, oh, this is trash, this is trash, this is trash, this is trash, and this is like then you start to feel bad. Eventually, you're gonna have to get over that. That never
Right.
goes away, but you get better at just like, okay, let me deviate and try to find a different way to motivate myself. Try to find someone to start with. My buddy Ike, he's one of the first guys. Like he was an intern before I was at Black Pearl, and we really connected on just like the music we were into and stuff like that. And just one person just is so nice to have. We're just like
Yeah.
we don't feel so alone in the process. The internet feels so big when you're scrolling through TikTok and stuff like that, and you see all these people with like nice gear and stuff like that.
Right.
That'd be another thing. Just work with what you have. I would say the same with you. You have a microphone right there. You got a pop filter.
Right.
That's all you need. I don't know if you have an interface or not, but
Don't know what that is, but I could Google it.
yeah, go practice a cover song. Go
Oh, that's a great
Steal
tip.
the
Yeah.
lyrics from a different song, put it on some chords, get in the habit of not having it feel so daunting to hear yourself back or using the
Mhm.
technology. You'll be able to learn a lot from someone else, especially if they're in like a slightly different genre. Their process is going to be a lot different, and you'll be able to pick and glean things that you like to do from them. Trying to do like more production, like more drums and stuff like that. Go to splice.com. I do not condone stealing at all, but r slash drum kits r slash drum kits is the spot for producers.
Oh,
We live,
interesting.
yeah, we live on that. So
Okay.
yeah, that's like a big thing. Back in the day there wasn't as much accessibility,
Yeah.
and now you can just look up who produced. Yeah, that's another thing, look up who produced your favorite songs, and then like look up those names, and then like a lot of times they'll have production videos or like whatever on there. Learn from them, or their own
Nice.
samples and drums online for sale somewhere.
Oh, very
Yeah, go to
cool.
go to splice.com. It's like $8 a month. Get you some nice sounding samples. Get clean, nice sounding samples. The first thing I learned in the studio was, everything can sound like garbage. Drums need to be on point. Weak
Mm,
drums are what separate good production from bad production.
interesting.
Everything else can sound as weird and wonky as it can be, but transients are very important. The impact of your drums, the quality of them. Yeah, the quality. You'll be able to hear it once you start hearing more higher quality sounds. The stuff you start out with, stock stuff on like Logic or Ableton or Reaper, whatever you're using, can sound great. A lot of them do sound great, but you'll hear the bad ones. You're like, this doesn't hit like it should, or like, and you'll notice eventually when you start using good samples, like, oh, this is the sound I'm searching for.
Those are
Yeah.
hot tips. And so let's say somebody wants to get into this professionally. You've talked a lot about how to like maybe, connect with people at a studio or like get into the engineering part. What about like the somebody really wants to, make a living making their own music, whether that's I don't know, getting on Spotify or doing live shows. What's like some first
Mhm.
steps for them?
I don't make a full living just off of my artistry, so I'm gonna say this with that perspective in mind.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say you're gonna have to have a team of people that can help you, because it's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts and such like that, and pitching, and knowing how to talk to people and connections and stuff like that that you're just not gonna have because you're just starting out. So yeah, build up that team, build up that network of people. Go to shows, go to your local venues. Like that's huge. Like go to your local venues. A lot of smaller towns. Charlotte's a city, and it has like a big city vibe, but it's mostly small town vibe.
Mhm.
From the outside, it looks like big city, but from the inside, it's really small town. So like, you get to know a couple people in your city, and like all of a sudden, people who are just Grammy nominated, and traveling, and have worked with your favorite producers, whatever. So just
Yeah.
go outside. Don't be on the internet so much. Go outside,
Right. Right.
go shake some hands, say hello, and eventually you'll find the person that's like serious about it, and you'll be able to
Yeah.
hopefully take off with them. Making money as an artist, let's see, and songwriter. The most money I've made is mostly from playing festivals, getting on local
Mm.
festivals.
Oh, cool.
A lot of those, when you have your own shows, typically you're bringing your own people, and that's how
Mhm.
you have a deal with the door, or the venue, and then you take a cut of ticket sales or whatever. With festivals, typically they have a budget in place already, and so you don't even have to have a fan base. You just have to make sure everything
Mhm.
looks good. Make
Yeah.
sure your whatever you're pitching to them looks good. I hate that because it kind of feels like fake, but like you know, two professional headshots. That's all you need.
Yeah, totally.
One,
It's
get
important.
get one
Yeah.
vertical, get one nice headshot, get one landscape, get one
Right.
nice video if you can.
Right.
That'll send you a long way, even if it's just you just playing the guitar and singing in a room like that. I had one of my buddies, shout out Rudy Kavaskis. The Kavaskis brothers are tight. And I shot a live video of just guitar and yeah, guitar, mic, spotlight, dark room.
Yeah.
And that led me to some big opportunities just
I
by
saw
just
that video, I
bringing up
think, of
on.
yours, and it was like, "Oh, wow, this is nice." Yes.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does make
and
a difference.
doesn't have a ton of views, but if it's quality, people are gonna recognize that authenticity, and they're gonna become fans of you. Um,
Yeah.
and those fans may be people who are well connected in the industry, or can help you at least get to that next step.
Right.
So yeah, just make sure everything looks quality when it sounds good. Everyone talks about you need to be posting 3 times a day and like do all this different stuff. Me, I was just like, that's unsustainable. What I'm
Right.
gonna do, I'm gonna have one quality project, one quality visual or 2 quality visuals, and then
Yes.
send that to everyone. Make sure it's fire. Make sure you're super happy with it, and then someone else is gonna be like, oh, this is cool too, and then boom, there you go.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm so glad you are saying
yeah,
this right now because the age of social media, right? People are thinking they got to post a million times a day and hope that the right people see them to get them the opportunities that they want, right?
yeah,
Here you are going directly to the opportunities and showing them the things that you have curated and been thoughtful about. That has always been my approach and stuff too. And it's
yeah,
like, yes, there, and feel free to do a combination of stuff. I'm not saying
yeah,
don't ever do social media, whatever you want, but don't just rely on I'm going to post and hope for the best. Go
yeah,
directly to these people, these
yeah,
opportunities, these submissions. But you're absolutely right. Like when we saw your submission, we didn't look at the view count on any of that stuff.
yeah.
We were just like, the song sounds great. It shows that you are taking your craft and these things seriously. Like
Hmm.
you put effort into the quality of
Yeah,
the video that you did and all that stuff. That's all people really want to see is
yeah,
that if you take it seriously, we're going to take it seriously. And whoever is on the other end of the submission, and it doesn't have to be a whole lot of stuff.
yeah.
You don't have to have 3,000 videos. You had one,
No,
right? Like,
yeah,
I love that. That is such great
yeah,
advice to people, and it can be more simple than we all think in our heads.
yeah. I would especially say with my first project, GIMP, like, um, didn't have a ton of like views or whatever, but I mean, it did well for where I was at. It's not like going crazy, but because the visuals were so cool and like you're presenting yourself in like a different way, and people just recognize that. You know what I mean?
That's
So
what's so great for people to know. It's like you have all this work, you're performing with your band, all this stuff. Like everybody gets so caught up on, but I don't
mhm,
have a following, so I can't do this thing yet.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be that way, right?
yeah,
It's
and
not one or the other.
I promise you, even if you're the closest city to you has someone that's going to be well connected and like, or at least
Yeah.
connected to that's going to help you to get that next step. So
Yeah.
gotta go outside, gotta shake hands, and
Yeah.
just be nice, show up, be cool.
I love it.
um
I love it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yes. So, Johnny, thank you so much for doing the podcast
dude, thank you
today.
so much. This has been
Yes,
sick, dude.
it's been really fun. I have learned a lot. I've gotten a lot of hot tips for myself that I will be using.
Oh yeah.
Where can people find you, your music? How can they can support you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get music. It's just my name, Tejani, Tejani. It's annoying to remember, so yeah, just Google on Prozac.
Oh
Google,
yes,
yeah, or
that's
not
one of
Google.
your
Search on Spotify on Prozac. That's the last project I put out. And then that'll link me into my artist profile. And then on social media, at middle name TJ, all one word. So at middle
perfect.
name TJ. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, everybody. I mean, how fun was that? Go follow Tijani, join his mailing list so you're notified about live shows in your area. Listen to his music. I especially love the insight he gave about not letting the fact that maybe you live in a smaller town or something stop you and that it can actually be an advantage. That advice that goes around like you have to move to either New York or Los Angeles to make your dreams come true. No, or you can just start where you are right now and not move to some of the most impacted cities on the freaking planet, or at least not yet, if that is a goal of yours. And I think it's just a good reminder for us to look at where we are. I love that quote that says something like, gosh, what is it? What you have right now is what past you wished for at some point, to just really take a moment and appreciate what you've already done, because that goalpost just keeps moving and we have to acknowledge that we're already here and we can do the thing that we enjoy in this moment. We don't have to wait until we have everything figured out or the environment is perfect or whatever it is, because that's just impossible. Also, if your goal is to do whatever your craft is full time, maybe that's your dream job and you feel like you aren't there yet, when you do get there, there's going to be stuff that you love doing and that you don't love doing. And so maybe you're already experiencing that on some level. Maybe you're doing your art part-time or as a hobby and you have a job that maybe you're not super in love with, but it pays the bills, it serves a purpose. That situation isn't much different when you quote unquote make it. You still love some of the stuff and you don't love some of the stuff. So you're already in that place that you're hoping to be at some point, at least energetically. I just see people so hard on themselves thinking that when they get that thing or when they can say that they're full-time or part-time or whatever, that a bunch of things are going to change. And it's still like a mix of stuff. It's still, you enjoy a lot of it, and there's things that you're not going to enjoy with anything. So anyway, I hope you take a moment to be proud of the things that you've done and where you're currently at and really celebrate that. So wrapping up with an update and an Apple Podcast review of the episode. You guys, I just went to my little brother's high school graduation. He's my youngest sibling, and it's just very surreal that he's basically a grown-up now. There's a really big age gap with myself and my siblings. I'm 34. It's just weird to think, yeah, one's almost 18, the other's almost 21, the other's almost 23, and it's just been a strange moment in time where I'm really reflecting on the fact that when I was a really young adult, they were all still kids and toddlers, and I remember that relationship dynamic of just playing with them and, them slobbering all over me and stuff. And now we're all adults together and they're my best friends. It's just very weird. So anyway, I know a lot of you are graduating or attending graduations, and I hope it's been a nice time for reflection and enjoyment with loved ones. And congratulations to all the recent grads and all the family and friends as well. And the Apple Podcast review for the day is from username I have swag ! And it says, amazing. A good friend recommended this podcast when talking about our anxieties. Since then, I've been binging as many episodes as I can in a workday. It's so cool to hear that Self-Helpless is the podcast that you tune into throughout your workdays, because that's been such a huge part of my own life and my own work days, especially when my job was painting penises on coffee mugs. And look, if you're new to the podcast, that is a story for a different time. But I would listen to podcast episode after podcast all day. I mean, business podcasts, creativity podcasts. It was just a great way to stay motivated and inspired by hearing other people's entrepreneurial stories while I was painting and working out the kinks in my first business. And ultimately, it also just kept me company as I sat at home alone trying to figure things out. I had gone from, doing a lot of stand-up comedy where you're just surrounded by people all the time to literally just being at home alone. So it was very helpful with that transition. And it really means so much that Self-Helpless is that friend to you for your workday. And also thank you to your friend, the one who recommended the podcast to you. That's really amazing. And it's honestly been the way that this podcast community has formed, is just word of mouth. We don't buy ads. We aren't really active on social media. It has been word of mouth that has grown this thing. And I just can't thank you enough for that. So if you would like to leave an Apple Podcast review, I will read it on the next episode and I'll get a chance to say hi to you personally. So all right, everyone, sending you lots of love, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to Self-Helpless. You can find our brand new merch, Patreon community, and other fun goodies at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you left an Apple Podcast review, shared this episode with a friend, or post about it on Instagram and tag us at Self-Helpless Podcast so we could repost you and say hi. As an independently produced show, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody.